Sexy people of the internet, it is Duncan back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Seattle hardcore punks, Filth is Eternal. The band's new album, Find Out, will be released on September 29th via MNRK Heavy.
MNRK!
Filth is Eternal's Find Out is the triumphant reawakening of one of Seattle's most vigorous bands, and their rebirth will soon be complete. Find Out, the new LP, is a spool of razor wire ready to unfurl on the unsuspecting world via MNRK, their label debut this 29th September. The new testament from Filth is Eternal is not only the band's best effort to date, but a clear undertaking of their own genesis with a deep awareness of themselves, their crowd, and the shared history between them. For this release, the band opted for the talents of producer Paul Figg, who has worked with Slipknot, AFI, and Alice in Chains, while recording at Dave Grohl's Studio 606 and Dave's Room. Find Out as just enough spit, polish, and production to conjure the masses, but still retains the dirt and grime necessary to remain congruous to the sound of to the sound and fury within. While each track,
if in doubt, MNRK.
Each track is its own pipe bomb, ready to ignite on the unsuspecting public. The record whips forth with the force of a breakthrough, creating a sense of urgency and relating the band's explosive message. Relating. What is with this press release? Who wrote this? Is this Lisa? Is this yours? I can't fucking read this for the life of me. And relating the band's
none of these words are complicated words that you're saying at the moment, so
Duncan,
she's running fucking circles around you right now, Dave.
I'm Scottish, man, alright.
This is a scathing indictment on the Grunge myth educational system right now.
I never said it was great, alright. And relating the band's explosive message to an unabating soundtrack of punk-inflected ferocity, embrace the oncoming tidal wave, changing of the guard, and the new revolution from Filth is Eternal. Sound the reveal, because one way or another you'll find out. So,
she's went one way or another. I'm assuming we're going Lisa. We're just assuming Lisa. One way or another we'll find out. When knowing how in the last week she's went full on sweary tirade, I would have went fuck around, find out, which is how I approach this album. Find Out to me is a weird name for an album, and I just put fuck around, find out.
All right.
FAFO, Dave. Fuck around, find out. And that's what this album is.
Okay. A mere 2 years since their Church Road Records released Love Is a Lie, Filth Is Eternal, yes. Which we reviewed and really enjoyed. This time with MNRK in tow.
MNRK.
Which is awesome. That's a huge move for the band.
Massive. They are a label that have put their stamp very quickly over elevating a lot of. Once again, I like that. I like the structure nowadays of bands moving, almost like how football teams know nothing about football. Move up leagues. You move into whichever league you are, you perform really, really well, and then you get promoted to the next league.
This is really interesting.
Don't know. I'm just guessing that you play football games. You know more than I do, but I like the idea of.
I'm loving your explanation.
You sign with someone higher up the rankings, so to speak. You perform really, really well there, and as a result, the bigger leagues then take an interest and then continue moving you up. And I think that bands can really shine on that one. Also can change the direction of a sound. It can refine some elements the higher you move up without necessarily quote unquote selling out, which is a lazy term that people use for not understanding why bands want to make money. They've totally sold out. Oh, why? Because they've wrote memorable songs that shift millions of units. So they're really good at their job, is what we're saying. Oh, let's hate them for that. You know what I mean? It's the MNRK is a good move for them. They've got a really interesting roster at the moment. But Church Road are part of that journey now, which once again will make bands who want to start moving through look at Church Road Records and say, well, look at the path that other bands have done. That's how it's supposed to work. That's how it used to work.
For sure.
It's an educational piece by Duncan McLeish.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. I'm a huge fan of the genre. Love hardcore, love punk. I was really interested to hear where they would go with this one. But I have thoughts. I have thoughts on the album.
Oh, you have thoughts and opinions, Dave?
I have thoughts. I have opinions.
How dare you as a reviewer? Toe the fucking party line.
Duncan, what do you think of this album? Tell me. Tell me more.
So, tell me now.
I'd like to find out.
You would like to find out? Well, let me tell you, Dave.
Tell me.
And the audience. Hi, audience. I've had a few beers. I've got a nice buzz going on right now. Plus, I am tired. I am so fucking tired. This was the one I was most curious about, the four that we've grouped together. And that this is one that I have, like, defined history with. Like, this... In the life cycle of Metal Epidemic, I have reviewed something by these guys. I've listened to actively and reviewed something by it. The other bands are either new or bands I have heard before, but might as well be new because I literally washed my brain of their existence. So I was curious about this one because the previous stuff I really liked because it had that kind of like no frills, take no prisoners, no bullshit, right for the jugular approach. And the curious element for me was I knew they'd changed labels, and this was if you're stacking them up, this is a bigger label in terms of its like just its reach and output and like money and machine behind it. Where I was kind of like, this, I'm happy for them, but it also kind of feels weird. The same way that Rollo Tomasi, when they released their album on MNRK, and we were like, this is fucking great that they're on that label now. However, why now? So there was a bit of feeling on how much will that actually impact their sound. It has actually impacted their sound, but not in a negative way. What I've actually found on this one, and I'm going to use words that generally... in reviews can be taken out of context and been made to be negative. I think this is an inherently accessible album, right? But I don't think for 1 second it's accessible because it's easier on the ears. Although there are more moments here which I think are charged towards kind of grungy melody, which I fucking love. But I actually think it's because the song structures themselves and the flow of the album is done in such a way that it's like a shot of adrenaline, and when it's wearing off, you can just hit that shot again and you'll pick yourself back up. It's very, very, very easy to listen to, and this is like so much energy and so much attack and right in your face, like all the stuff you've come to expect from Filth is Eternal, and you get it straight away. The production is what kind of morphs this a little bit, changes it, refines it more than the actual band. I have no doubt in my mind that when I see this live, it's going to sound a bit gruffer than it sounds on CD or MP3 or whatever. But that production, actually, if anything, I think kind of fits with the band now. That, like, you were mentioning
You're just reading my notes that are sitting right in front of me.
Sorry,
word for word here.
We've been friends for a long, long time and we'll listen to a lot of the same music, but I actually think this is the perfect album to get into Filth is Eternal, and then I think you are then given a plethora of stuff to go and check afterwards. Like, I don't think anyone listening to this and seeing them live and they're more savage, and it isn't a huge gulf here, but it will sound different. Is going to be sitting there going, I've been sold a lemon, Dave. You know what I mean? They're not going to be saying that. I think if anything, this actually is the kind of CD version of the band that I want. I keep saying CD, I need to stop saying CD. It's the MP3 version of the band that I want, because it sounds bigger. You rattled off like all these people that the producer had worked with, and actually this all charts. That there's a much more grungier element here, and their sound specifically vocally, right, than on previous releases, which were more kind of hardcore punky than anything else. But I love it. There's a kind of almost and I'm sorry if I'm stealing from your notes here. There's a kind of Courtney Love weirdly smashed with Tanny B with a bit of Brody Dahl. Like, amalgam thing going on, like if they're all flung in a cauldron and mixed together, that's the potion that would be poured out. And I love it because it fucking works. The moments where the vocals sync up into delivering a kind of a Brody Dalle style melody, before sitting back on like a bit of Tarry B savagery, before hitting those sweet spots of kind of grungy Courtney Love. It all works seamlessly on this, and they're not overused in any one element. Musically, it is fucking fire from start to finish. This is like, from the moment it starts off, this is a greyhound chasing a mechanical rabbit along a course. It never lets up, but it gives you plenty of twists and turns. The music has enough character. The longer songs, of which there aren't many, most of the songs on this album are under 2 minutes, but the ones that dare to go over the 2 minute mark, or dare I even say over a 3 minute mark, are the ones where you get a bit more character, a bit more personality. They can use more techniques and flesh out a bit more of a kind of alternative grungy interlude, or a chorus that goes on a couple of times or whatnot. But I was like kind of blown away by this. Like I kind of thought I knew what I was going to get, and I knew it was on a bigger label, and I did actually actively go back and listen to the previous release because it's in my time frame. I even went back and checked out what people were saying about the time of it as well, and how excited everyone was. And at the back of my head, after listening to the album the first time through, the question that kept coming up to me was, how many of those people that were praising them for being kind of outliers and much more savage are going to be not even forgiving, but accepting of a more refined version of the band? I think you're a fucking idiot if you aren't. Like, if I'm being honest, I think what you're getting here is a more tempered and more focused product at the end of it. But with nothing in here that I don't think doesn't make the band sound bigger than what they were before. And if you're a band that's on your fucking third album and you're still at the same level, why bother writing another album? Like, you want to keep building up and hopefully take your fans on that journey with you and get new fans while you're doing it. Every new release, you get new fans in, plus retain the old ones. And that's where Find Out totally shines. I found myself remembering and having listened to that previous one again, like connecting all the tissue in here, but really enjoying all the inclusion of all the stuff they've done. It sounds like song composition and attention to detail on, we can throw a hook in here and it's not going to fucking kill us, was actually very cleverly placed. And they're not all done that way. Not every single track on this album is designed to give you a chorus you're going to sing along to. Some of them are straight, like a swift kick to the testicles, like straight down the middle, right between the two balls, you know what I mean, right in the perineum, steel toe, you know, boom, like fucking, you know, shit and blood for a week shot, you know what I mean? And other ones are, you're going to get a bit of savagery, and then the melody's never saccharine either, and that's what aids it. The melody is in keeping with the tone of the album. And it delivered. And I think as it went through with all its twists and turns, its little tricks, and it's like very, very, this is an upfront cunt album, you know what I mean? It's just right there all the way through. And you get moments where it kind of reins back a little bit, but it's not until the longest track on the album at a whopping 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Jesus Christ, that was an arduous job to get through, which is Loveless on the last track, where the band actually teased something else. And what they're teasing, that something else, was something I was like, if you start going down this road on the next album, I'm fucking in. It was something a bit more slower, a bit more measured, a bit more moody, and it works. All the savagery's here, all the snarl, all the piss, all the vinegar, all the snarl for sure. It's produced better. It has a bigger sound, but they're a bigger band now. It introduces really clever melody, really clever hooks without losing anything before, and the songwriting is fucking great. This to me is, in the best possible way, a band that I already liked fucking leveling up. Like, they've fucking smacked the fucking box with a question mark and eat the mushroom and become Big Mario. I think I honestly think this is great. This is such a fucking easy listen, man. Honestly, you can spin this one and spin it and spin it and spin it and spin it and just smile at how great it is. As he's someone that runs a lot on treadmills, it's the fucking perfect running album as well. You're you don't feel tired when you're listening to this because the album is shouting at you like a military sergeant. Come on, you maggot! All the way right through it. This is fucking these guys, man. Honestly, I'm so chuffed for them. This is how you debut on a bigger record label. You come out fucking swinging, and this album comes out swinging. Dave, fuck around and find out is what I've realised when listening to Find Out on this. I thought it was great. I will be morally, emotionally, and physically destroyed if you did not enjoy this. Because I know you were big on the previous one, and this is a more commercial version of the previous one. I'm just hoping it's not one step too far, and I'm about a bum break. Don't want to go close to that age, Dave. Don't go close to the edge. Genuinely, I'm curious, what did you make? I know there's some notes that are crossing over here, but they could be negative notes, Dave.
Could be.
To my positive notes.
Could be.
Two different people.
Well, dear listeners. I have not had a few beers this evening.
No, you're drinking some fucking weird, fucking...
Kiwi lemonade, apparently, is what this is.
Right, which doesn't make sense. You can't make lemonade from a kiwi. Surely it's kiwi-aid.
I don't know. We live in Scotland, Duncan. It's a country of wonder. It really is.
It's a country of wonder and not of kiwis.
No. So, I don't have a wee buzz. I've not been on the booze. I've had to read through a press
I just want to stress that my review came from the heart and not from the alcohol.
From the booze. From the beers.
Talking shite. Listen to you. Can't even touch your nose. Say the alphabet backwards. Walk in a straight line. Breathe into this. Blow on this, which he's also said a few times, ladies and gents, and I'm not fucking doing it this time.
Aye. That's the drink talk.
Easy now.
Yeah, I've already had to read through a press release of words that I can't fucking pronounce. And now I've got to follow up your soapy hand job.
Didn't go to Falkirk High School like Lisa Coverdale did.
Lisa, can we just have some more simplistic press
Two
releases,
syllables
please?
for Dave, please.
Yeah, please. Come on.
4-letter words.
I'm struggling
just
here,
keep saying fuck. You can say that really easily. Watch him. Say it.
Struggling. I liked the last album. It was a clear step up from the debut album, back when they were called Fucked and Bound. Great name for a band.
It's also my favourite chapter of the Kama Sutra.
Oh,
it was the one that was banned. It's like the Gnostic Gospels. You know what I mean? They don't recognise them in the canon, but worth a check out if you
are such a filthy wee slut. So you are.
I am pure and divine, Dave.
Yeah, really.
Some
not.
say saintly or godlike.
No, not at all. Filth, absolute filth.
Filth is eternal.
So is Duncan. When I looked at the run time on this one, I was like, "All right, okay, so we're clocking in a little bit longer on this release."
29 minutes.
And the last one was only like,
how am I going to cope with this?
19 minutes and change. The last one was fucking.
But still, we're going to keep things in context here. Like,
we've added a third
14 14 songs.
Yeah,
and it's fucking...
Come on now, we've added a third of length onto this album here. All right, an extra 10 minutes here. 14
better be married. Better not be going all proggy and shit.
9-minute prog.
If I hear Bird song on this, I'm fucking out.
So I had a feeling like we're maybe going to get something with some boundaries being pushed on Find Out, trying some new things. I don't like to pat myself on the back, Duncan, you know what I mean? I'm not that type of guy, but...
Never, I will tell you right now,
but
he has never been someone to be like, I was right, you were wrong.
Humble Dave is what they call me. Humble Dave. I'm going to say
HD for short.
I was 100% right on this though, because Find Out is that next evolvement of the band where they have leveled up on their songwriting to that next stage, and they've knocked out a fucking banger of an album here.
You liked it? That's good to know. Teased that a while there.
So yeah, it was a bit of a long,
I like it though. I like it. You keep them on their total, like the audience who could easily just drag the bar along to the end to see what the score is. Have not done that because they're not lazy bastards.
It's foreplay, Duncan. You've got to have that bit of foreplay. You know, you can't just dive right in there. And here's my score. Here's what you can't do that.
That's where I'm going wrong. Thank you for the sex edge.
Duncan, come on. I thought you'd read the Karma Sutra. What is happening here?
What? No, I read the chapter that's
just
banned.
Fucked and bound. Straight to the point. Anyway, this album is still angry. Like this, there's no change. It's raging. This album is raging. But here they've managed to keep that hostility and also refine their style to be even more memorable on this one. I loved the last one for how ferocious it was and just that pure venom that they spat at you for the whole album. But it wasn't an album that was like huge on like big, huge hooks or catchy choruses. It was all about the delivery and all about the message. This one still has a message, but it's one that sticks a bit more afterwards. Still is varied, nothing, and as we've said, nothing outstays its welcome lengthwise. These tracks are still quite short. Not quite as like over in a flash as the previous release, but I feel like they've let some of the riffs, some of the hookier moments, just do another round on the tracks here. So you're getting that kind of it's getting stuck in your head a bit better on this album. I never really noticed it before on the previous release, but I hear much more cancer bats on this one. Like, never really picked up on the last album, but here it's like, there was a few times I was like, that's a wee bit like more modern.
Cancer bats are an anomaly. When the longer that band's went on, the more that they are an anomaly because they cross a couple of genres. It's like in a weird place where like if these genres like had a border with each other, cancer bats appear to be like a circular. Appear to be a town that for some reason is in like 4 different genres that shouldn't be together but are.
Yeah.
And as a result, I find myself linking a lot of bands back to that. And it's that punky aesthetic they have that they don't always deploy nowadays, but when they do, you're like, oh shit. But you're right. It's that kind of snarly get up and go sort of thing they've got.
Yeah, it's mixed in a really clever way with their own style, so it still feels like Filth is Eternal. I think this album is stylistically much more varied in tone, and they do give you a little bit more kind of breathing space on tracks as opposed to before when they didn't really give you a second to think and it was like on to the next track. This one does have not downtime, but tracks where they shift the dynamics and show you a bit more of that slightly softer side. Although Filth is Eternal's softer side is still harder than most, to be honest. But I thought like tracks like All Mother, with those more melodic chords and kind of cleaner parts, were a great addition to the album. I could also hear more of the band's kind of grungier influences coming through in this one, which was really cool to hear. Even in the solos, where they've got a bit of that kind of like chorus effect on the guitars, sounds very 90s-esque. Vocally, least is where you've seen that improvement again on this album.
So good.
It's interesting because on the closing track of the previous album, that was where she dropped in more of that kind of like, she showed she had more in the tank, basically. That was like the longest track, and it heard her give more of a kind of tonal delivery with a bit more kind of dirty melody on it.
Yep.
And that's been fully kind of expanded on this album in a big way. There are certain tracks here where she leans into that much more, showing off that kind of grungy melodic side, and it adds so much more to these tracks.
Dave, we're experiencing a grunge renaissance right now. It's the renaissance of the grunge. It's the grunge renaissance, right?
I'm glad you said that.
Like when I think about it now, Mountaineer last year, right? Specifically started like big old swaths of the grunge right in there. This year we've already had Teenage Wrist, but we had even fucking Pupil Slicer Like out of nowhere, you listen to Blossom, the title track on the album, Blossom. You listen to that, and it's fucking in the sound. Even when you listen to like bands like Puppy, there are grunge elements in that, and I'm for one with it because it doesn't. The music has evolved, so it's not just like fucking lazy grungy chords. It's in the best parts. Grunge, like the grunge vocalists. If you think back there just now, like to Eddie Vedder, Kurt Cobain, fucking Chris Cornell, and you know those are the ones. Those are distinctive voices with huge fucking ranges, and you hear it being transferred now, and it just fucking works.
Yeah,
and that was the big standout for me. Is you don't have to do it. You can do like all the other stuff to keep all the fans happy. But you're right. Tease that on that closing track, and like me and you, I remember at the time were like, "Hello, hi there. Is this something new I hear, or is this just the closing track?" And then like the next track, the next album, logically you're like, "Oh, you can do that."
Yeah.
It'd be like you in the practice room with me when we're back in a band, and you like that. Oh, last week I was just practicing, and I discovered I could do gravity blasts, and I'm like that. Well, we must never use them ever. Like, like, of course, the next song you write is going to be like, how many gravity blasts can we fit in this song? As much as we can before Dave passes out.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a wash on this album because that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only is it great to hear a bit of diversity in the album, but that melody just sinks in its hooks even more on the album. Tracks like Crawl Space or The Gate will just get absolutely stuck in your head. But you know, and have a melody that you just want to, you can't help but want to kind of shout along to as well. But there's also times where it's just a tone that really gets you as well, not even necessarily a particular melody. Her voice on tracks like Cherish or Body Void or Signal Decay had this more like ethereal kind of aura about them, and she lets out this really like, almost pure kind of clean tone, and it's fucking awesome. Adds so much character to the tracks and to the release. I feel like she's really knocked it out of the park on this one, and I loved how the last track on this album again was a little different the way they did on the previous album, so it's like hinting at okay, so we could, you know, try some other things on the next one, which is really exciting to hear.
Literally Samuel L. Jackson walking in at the end of a Marvel movie.
Yes,
Hey, Filth is Eternal, have you heard of the Avengers? You're like, oh shit, what's the next album going to be like? I love that. You just need to keep doing it.
Yeah. So production, right? Let's talk about production. The last.
Oh, he started there, ladies and gents. Dave just took a breath. He started a little bit. He wanted to say the words "great," but something was stopping him. Let's find out what it was that was stopping him.
The album production we got on the previous release had a very kind of like typical punk sound, very gritty, very abrasive. Sounded very much like a band in the room with a bunch of mic'd up amps. This one still has the dirt and has that kind of old school vibe, and the bass is still EQ'd in a way that lets it sit in the mix and be completely audible. I love that on the last album as well, so I'm glad to hear that they've let that have its own lane on the production where you can hear all those little runs from Rasan. Drum sounds are okay as well. I quite like the kind of snap and the snare, and the bass drum is nice and punchy, enough to give it that kind of drive.
There's a butt coming here. I can feel the butt. Like it's like in the distance, like a train coming across the train tracks, and I'm hiding in the track, and I'm like, what am I doing?
It's got plenty of that kind of drive and kind of punk groove. But the guitars are the one that kind of threw me a bit. Slightly less abrasive on than on the last album. So it's less abrasive than on the last album.
Kind of throw something through a camera at you.
A bit more kind of rounded sounding, which I wasn't sure on at first. I felt like I agree with you.
Coming here.
I feel like live, this will be absolutely filthy and gritty. On the album, I was like, I kind of wanted a bit more of that. Once I got into the album, it didn't really become too much of an issue. It was just the initial, when I first heard it, I was like, oh, right, okay. But as you hear more of that kind of melodic streak coming out of the band, I felt like, all right, I can see why they went down that route. I thought that I liked the production. I didn't like it as much as the last album production. I felt like the last album had a bit more character in the production. I was maybe just, it might be that my expectations were a little high because it was like, oh, it's Paul Fig and it's Dave Grohl studio. So I was like, had that in my head thinking this is going to be like an incredible production job, and it maybe just didn't hit the heights that I was expecting.
It's weird. I'm the other side of that. I think this totally marries up with what I expect on a bigger label with the more accomplished.
I think it's more produced.
That, like, it feels like this to me feels like a more refined album. Like overall.
It does, and I think the production kind of reflects that as well. But I don't know. There's something about the previous production that I preferred. There was just something raw and dirtier about it.
It's the Ross Robinson thing, isn't it? Like, when you listen to those first two Korn albums, you're like, this is the fucking shit.
Yeah.
And then they released their biggest album ever, and you're like that. Oh,
it could also. it might.
Like, oh, it's not as raw as it was before. I mean, I like the songs, but it's not as raw.
Yeah. It could also be just down to the fact that the other albums we were reviewing this week were fucking ridiculously heavy in the production. So maybe when I was sticking this on, there was maybe just that kind of real, kind of like drastic
Look
change.
out for the t-shirts to chart what we're reviewing this week. We've still got one left to do, and it is the fucking ugliest thing I've heard in a long time.
It could be something to do with that as well. That aside, fucking ace. As a fan of hardcore punk, this delivers the goods and in a more impressive fashion than the previous release. They've recently announced they'll be hitting Glasgow with Finch later on this year. I think it's November. So
November is such a bad month, right? but if we can, we'll be there.
Yes, we will. I will be.
I've never seen Finch live.
I've never seen them live either.
I had that one album, What Is to Burn, that I used to fucking spin to death and lie about it to friends in case they thought I was emo. Finch who? Isn't that a bird?
Shite.
You know what I mean? Like, who is this Finch of which you speak? I'm listening to it now. I was at home going, like fire. You know?
I think they're playing the Garage with Finch.
That's nasty sounding. Let's do it
in November. So
let's do it. As long as it's not on the same night as something else that will kill us not to go to.
I think
it's just the now thing.
I think it might be the night before. There's something else. I'm sure I looked at it and thought there's like a few in a row, but
it's November. We're fine. Nothing happens in November. We're fine. Yeah. We'll do it. We'll be there.
Anyway, scores for the new album from Filth is Eternal. What did you score? Find out.
4.5. I think this is like fucking a colossal like step in the right direction. I don't think these guys are that far away from like not supporting Finch and instead headlining the Garage. Like, listening to this album particularly, I could see that happening. I love the structure of the album. I love the lean in towards something with more of a hook whilst retaining all that snarl. I'm not and you're not being negative, so I don't want to say the word negative, but I'm maybe more positive on the changes in the production overall. I think it really, really does fit with our sound, and I think overall this is going to get more ears on them for sure, and get more people out to the shows, and that's when they'll find out, you know, what it feels like to be fucked and bound. I mean, like, because that's what I know for a fact live, this is going to be absolute fucking savage. So yeah, 4.5 for me. I think these guys are great. I continue to smile with joy on the sidelines and watch them elevate up, and I still don't think we've got the best from them. They're a young band, so I expect many, many more albums, and I would not be surprised if the next time we're reviewing an album, we're both sitting there going like that. This is just like across the board fucking the best thing ever. So 4.5 from me.
Nice. I will agree. I gave Love Is a Lie a 4 out of 5. I think this is better. I'm going to go 4.5 as well. Yeah, production, just a personal thing. I didn't feel it was quite as good as the last album. In a weird way that it's better produced, but I've just preferred that kind of dirtier sound on the previous one. That aside, great album. I think they've leveled up 100% in the songwriting. I love the kind of melodic vocals they've added in. And I'm excited to hear what they do next, because they're a band that like to kind of surprise and throw something new into the mix. So really looking forward to hearing what they do next, and looking forward to seeing this live. I think it's going to be killer to watch in the kind of live environment.
Can I ask one question before we jump out here?
Sure.
Are we 100% sure this is a Lisa band?
The album came from Lisa, yes.
Right, it came from Lisa. So, Lisa, this is for you, because I know that you watch these. Dick, penis, hard on, cum shot. And you are more than happy to use any of those words in the press statement moving forward to sell the album. I know she loves it when I talk about my dick. So
yeah, she does.
My dick.
Filth is Eternal. Find out on September 29th.
Fuck around and find out. FAFO.
On MNRK Heavy. Links below to the band and the Bandcamp. Check it out. Have a wee listen. This review is now longer than the album itself. No excuses. Check out the album.
No excuses and no worries either.
No worries.
Hakuna Matata, Dave. Let's bring it in.
That is the review. Thanks for checking it out. We'll be back very soon with another review, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.